the giant storm with almost certainly that will almost certainly request billions, not millions, but billions of dollars in additional federal dollars, which means an appropriation from Congress. And we know that the House of Representatives is still controlled by Republicans. Those are the guys who said that Barack Obama would, they were hell-bent on making him a one-term president, while the U.S. Senate is now dominated by Democrats with a comfortable margin. They picked up about 5 or perhaps 7 seats. But more on this later on in the bottom half of the hour with our guest who will give us a post-election analysis. Governor Cuomo, as you remember, once headed the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Now, he is asking for 100% reimbursement for major infrastructure projects compared to the 75% automatically provided in major disasters, but our governor is going for 100%. Governor Cuomo, who has acknowledged the devastating impact of global warming, has proposed the building of a new seawall system to protect New York from future superstorms. We need that protection from the superstorms. You know what the price tag is? It is about $10 billion. Now, Mayor Bloomberg's business management style approach to the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy has proven somewhat disastrous. The my way or no way mayor canceled the city's annual marathon scheduled to kick off in Staten Island, but it was only as a result of intense public pressure, especially from local residents reeling from the deaths and destruction of the storm. Now, before the storm hit, remember, the mayor incredibly announced that the city didn't need FEMA's help. According to the mayor, the city had, quote, everything under control. Media reports have taken notice that major relief efforts have fallen on volunteers, not City Hall. The biggest hardship from Hurricane Sandy is on poor and working folks. The hardest hit, or rather the biggest hardship, has been on poor and working folks, and we see that with public housing residents in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Hopefully our guest is going to talk about that later on, because people in Red Hook are still without power. They have no heat, hot water, electricity. These residents are in fact displaced. And just recently, city, state, and federal officials have announced, or they are attempting to create a clearinghouse of vacant apartments throughout the city to house displaced homeless residents. These apartments would supplement the city's shelter system, an option, I'm sure, untenable for thousands of previous homeowners and private renters. The coming cold weather will exacerbate the existing crisis, both short and long term. Sean Donovan, head of HUD, that's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, who was also the former commissioner of New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, recently met with real estate executives to implore them to help out with emergency housing. But New York City's powerful and influential real estate industry is seeking major concessions, as evident by subsequent meetings with members of the Real Estate Board of New York, the Rent Stabilization Association, and the State Association for Affordable Housing. In the New York area, FEMA provides about $1,800 a month in rental assistance for up to 18 months. This could cover most housing in Brooklyn and Queens, but developers and landlords say that it would fall short of covering many units in Manhattan. In addition, landlords raised a number of statutory and legal hurdles that will have to be overcome. In apartments that operate under the state's rent stabilization laws, there is no provision for short-term tenants. That's not true, because we know developers and real estate folks here in Harlem, even in Delano Village, which is now Savoy Parks, they do rent or have short-term leases because they rent up to 6 months, and they rent on a short-term lease basis to corporations. So landlords can do whatever they want to. That certainly is not true. Some building owners ask whether the government would indemnify them, give them indemnity for apartment damages or legal costs if they were forced to evict a tenant. Ha ha. In addition, rebuilding models include modular homes or housing as a lesser option, but President Barack Obama is expected to announce a major federal rebuilding program in New York, New Jersey, and possibly Connecticut when he visits the city this coming Thursday. So stay tuned, folks. Now, we just wanted to get that information to you. We have here in the studio, we're going to ask our guests to mic up here, if you will. We've had him on the program before, Reverend Vernon Williams, who is here with us. Thank you. And you brought along a companion here, a guest. Would you introduce yourself? I didn't know you were coming, but glad to have you. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Dia. Nice to meet you.
Dia, and you work with Reverend Williams.
Yes, I am his unofficial assistant.
His unofficial assistant, but now official, because here you are on the radio airwaves, Dia, and we're going to talk with Reverend Williams, who we need his sound on for Dia and Reverend Williams. So again, Reverend Williams, welcome to the program. You are an incredible person and man. I mean, getting those text messages from you 1 or 2 o'clock telling us where the street violence is and what's happening. So, at least I got one message from you. It was really very late, and I said, Reverend Williams, go home. Go home, Reverend Williams. Go home. Get some rest, because I get these messages from you religiously. But I thank you, as well as many other folks here in Harlem, as well as throughout the city, for the incredible work that you do, and just the resiliency and your commitment. I think you are deserving of so much more than these words. But
I'll take a peanut butter sandwich and some warm milk to go with that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Nellie.
Okay, so let's bring our listeners up to date. What is going on out there? You're all over the city in the outer boroughs. Yeah. Give us a snapshot of what's happening.
We have people on the ground in all 5 boroughs. Reverend Lane, who's the president of the Ministers Association in Staten Island, Brother Keith Subru in Coney Island, Brother Tony Herbert in Canarsie, Brother Jeffrey Lane in Red Hook, Sister Teresa and myself, and Shadia and Dia, excuse me, and a couple of others were out in Far Rockaway. And in the Bronx, of course, we have Brother Hakeem. And as I personally, and I pack my car with people and supplies, as we go to each spot, I pick a day to go to each outskirt. One of the things that we noticed is that in the affluent or middle class neighborhood, there are relief centers set up. And the relief centers are then surrounded by Red Cross and FEMA and the media. So that's where they are. But the people are 3 miles away. So, you know, me and my crazy self, I say, well, put some hot food in my car and let's fill up your car and let's go to the hood. So instead of us being in a 3-block radius where there are 7 relief stations set up, we go out. We go out to the neighborhoods where the people have to walk 3 and 4 miles to get a hot plate of food and a change of clean clothes. And we say, that's all right. You don't have to go that far. You can get it right here, and we give it to them. And we let them know when we'll be back. And in the time and what we try to do is we try to organize ourselves that if I'm there on Tuesdays and Saturdays, then and I thank God, you know, somebody's going to say, Rev, are you really saying that now? But I'm going to say that now. Say it now. I thank God for Cleflo Dollar Ministries. They came on board. They're working with us. I thank God for Leron Hayes, who and for the Benevolent Association of Correction Officers, who are on board and who are doing extraordinary work filling up the gaps. This is not about what makes me feel good or you feel good. This is not about a photo opportunity. I love the fact that John Legend and the basketball players and all of them went out there into their old neighborhoods, but go back now without the cameras because we need to get some work done. You know, because the fact of the matter, in the coming weeks, we're going to hear about the rise in assaults, the rise in sexual assaults in these areas, because the evil is still in these communities. At nighttime, at dusk, it becomes a
predator's heaven.
A frightening place to be. Now, I'm not. You asked me to paint a picture. The only picture I have is honesty.
Well, Reverend Williams, we have you here because we want that picture, that truth, to be told. And another reason why I think it's important for many to hear your voice is that, and I don't mean to, for our listeners who out there who sort of, monitor our shows here, I don't mean to make this a racial issue, but what we don't see in the media are Black relief and volunteers. It is all about the white community. That's good. I'm not complaining about that, but I do know that there's you and all of the people whom you have named. There is HYJA here at City College in the center. There are so many folks, our folks, Black, Latino, African Americans out there every day, but these stories rarely hit the media. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about the power of truth and the ugliness of truth that people may not want to hear because they want to paint this picture of, I gave you some hot food, you ate it, and you go home, and that's the end of the story. But it's much more powerful than that.
Much more powerful than that. My first day out on Far Rockaway, and you know, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of violence. I've seen a lot of depravity of humanity, if I was to sum it up in a phrase. But my first hour out on Far Rockaway, the devastation emotionally crippled me for about an hour. I was just standing there looking around, walking.
Give us an example of what you're talking about, this depravity, this anti-human.
The first thing that I saw was the power of this superstorm. We were literally on the boardwalk, and the boardwalk was almost a block and a half away from the beach. It was literally lifted up and tossed a block away. So I was humbled by that power, but at the same time, I was taken back by the level of separation, the tale of two cities, because of the poverty and what was going on. I mean, I would go through one area, you know, in the B50, Beach 50 areas where it was just beautiful. It was all cleaned up and looked all beautiful, and the cars were shiny. And I would walk 5 blocks south, and wow, I'm back in the hood, and this is third world, and it's really wow. And I'm like, okay, why are they not getting services? And then we'd go up to B82nd, and it was bustling with everybody there, and everything was looking great, and services. And then, you know, one sister, a white woman, whispered into Dia's ear, listen, y'all need to go down to 25. Go down to B25. And we went down there.
And nobody was there.
And no one was there.
Right. You know, at this point, we're going to, you folks are going to stick around, but we have an attorney on the line, Joel Kupperman, and he's going to talk a little bit, and I didn't know this, and he is a lawyer. The mayor, under Mayor Bloomberg, a power station was sold to real estate developers for $800 million. So, Joel, are you on the line? Join us, Reverend Williams and Dia. They're on the line. They're going to stay with us after you talk a little bit about what happened with this power station. Hello, Joel, are you on the line? Here. Yes. So tell us about this. I don't think many people know about this story. Tell us what happened with this real estate deal.
Well, the 14th Street Power Station is in the East Village and was a cause of many problems for people living there in terms of breakdowns, in terms of pollution, in terms of PCBs and the like. So, in spite of all of this, Con Ed decided to sell their power plant that was located north of 34th Street, basically between 34th and a little south of the UN. So they sold that for $800 million to build luxury condos.
And what year was this?
About 4 or 5 years ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is that they did that after a lot of opposition, but they basically doubled the power of the size of the 14th Street plant, which was having problems before. It's basically you have an old car that's breaking down, and now you decide to take more people every day in the car with extra weight, and that basically what happened. And there was explosions at the plant that basically during Sandy that people saw that actually were very concerned about the possibility of PCBs, and the like. But it's just another environmental justice disaster that one neighborhood is asked to take too much of the negative impact of a power plant.
Why is it, Joel? Do you think that not a single media outlet has reported on this story? Because the explosion at the power plant at 13th and Avenue C is now a forgotten story. No reference to it.
I think, well, you got to ask, right? I mean, who's energizing the media? Is one question, and I guess we have to fight to bring that back into the limelight, into discussion, such as shows such as this. And I think the questions we want to ask is that we sort of conceded power to the city. We also conceded power to Con Ed, and there's been a lot of lack of supervision in terms of planning and the like. And now I think it's time for people to take that back. And the way that this plant was sold, the one in the north, and then Con Ed was allowed to double the size of the plant on 14th Street. We're very concerned that there's also new developments that are going on, and also the rebuild after the storm. And we're calling for a moratorium on any new developments, and we're asking for a full environmental assessment and full citizen participation. Over the years, the city, in the name of the mayor, has used something called even a mayoral override, which was used to people in St. Nick's housing are aware of that all of a sudden the mayor said, we want to, take down 100 of your trees and put up a charter school, and we want to open up the roads again. And rather than following the zoning, which is basically saying this new building is too big, we're just going to do this mayoral override. And people could not fight it. They weren't really even aware that it took place. So one of the things that we're concerned about, Sandy, is basically saying everything that's out there that wants to be rebuilt or rezoned or new permits, we want full citizen participation, and we don't want any more expedited review. That's the buzzword that we've been pushed with that basically says there's too much paperwork, it's slowing things down. And I think after Sandy, we know that there's a reason why we don't cut down wetlands or we don't build, luxury buildings on the edge of a river.
We're going to bring Reverend Williams and Dee into this conversation, and I want to now focus specifically on public housing. In an interview, or rather an article that appeared in the New York Times, Mayor Bloomberg announced that 30 to 40,000 public housing tenants would have to be relocated, and many see this as Mayor Bloomberg's Hurricane Katrina moment, and as a way of really driving out low-income public housing residents, particularly in gentrified areas such as Red Hook, and how they're going to do that. And we announced earlier that Governor Cuomo and others are talking about a seawall system that will protect New York City from future hurricane disasters. And many believe that public housing is now on the chopping block, and that the context for this isn't as vulgar as it was in New Orleans, describing it as an act of God to get rid of public housing tenants, but the intent is the same. So, Reverend Williams, tell us about what you've noticed with tenants in public housing, particularly in Red Hook and Far Rockaway.
Well, in all honesty, I must say this. As it relates to this disaster, they're the last thought about. I don't, John Rena is a friend of mine. And I think that he has a good heart. And
John Rea, he is the head of the New York City Public Housing Authority.
Right. And I think that he's trying to do a good job. But I think that the job itself is a humongous job. It is a big job. On Staten Island, FEMA was talking about bringing in trailers. When we know that there's already a housing stock right there. There are empty condos there. Put those people in those condos. Same thing around the city. It's not that there isn't housing where people can go. You don't have to displace them. Keep them in their community. Put them in those vacant condos. And
also the units that are being warehoused in public housing in the thousands.
Well, there's a perfectly good reason for that. And with the sale of grant houses to Citibank.
Yes.
And with the, as the lawyer indicated, with the partnering with Mayor Bloomberg to build a charter school in the middle of St. Nicholas houses, there are things on the chopping block with New York City housing, because the budget is so tremendous, so humongous, that it is not a functional budget. So they're looking to sell off. They're looking to sell off. And the same thing is happening with, there are 49 housing complexes here in Harlem. And they're going to go through them one by one. They're going to quit. And here's the thing that really gets at my skin and makes me itch. We as a people always wait until the last minute to want to, ouch, I'm hurting. I say to the leaders in our community, and especially to the religious leaders in our community, you guys are doing our people a disservice. When you knew about gentrification 25 years ago, and you didn't do anything about it. Now that you see it stepping on your toes, you see your congregations dwindling, now you want to holler? No. Now you organize to try and save as much as you can save. Don't start jumping up and down now, because the only thing that's going to come out of that is somebody's going to get paid under the table, and the people are still going to get sold out.
Dee, you want to give us your thoughts on that? And then we'll get back to the attorney.
Well, just from what I saw specifically in the Far Rockaway area, we mentioned it a little bit already, that these people were already suffering and struggling already before this storm came. And to go out there now and to see that again they are forgotten, and again they are not provided for, and it seems like only what volunteers bring regular people from their homes and out of their own pocket is the only thing that you see out there, that they're now trying to survive off of those things. Again, I don't see FEMA in these locations. You don't see Red Cross in these locations. And in the support and the volunteers, it is black on black. It is black families coming out of their own pockets to support other black families. So I do agree with the comments that were said before. So
and Joel, is this I know in my circles many activists are viewing this, and their analysis is that the New York City's powerful and influential real estate industry, as we see in the negotiations that they're now having with FEMA and HUD and city and state officials. They're looking to get all they can out of this, and Mayor Bloomberg wants to add another million new residents to New York City, and this is the coastal city, and global warming is not going to go away regardless of what the Republicans say in their denial. It's here, and people are looking at future preventive measures. Is this, you think, or are we being somewhat cynical when we say that they are possibly viewing this as a Katrina moment, and let's get rid of as many public housing tenants as possible?
Well, I don't think you have to be conspiratorial. There was a process already on the federal level and the city level of decreasing the number of not just decreasing the number of units, but also decreasing the amenities. It's basically telling the people in Harlem that, elsewhere we're planting 1 million trees, but we're going to cut down your 100 trees. So I think the message has been given out, to the residents that, they aren't first-class citizens, they're second-class citizens. So there's good reason for them to have, have that fear. And also, the mayor keeps on pushing, market rate. And so sooner or later, the pressures is impinging upon the NYCHA housing.
Well,
you brought up...
Yeah, Joel, just a second.
Is that it is a Katrina moment in that what happened in Katrina is that they kept on saying that these people who were living in public housing, that there was a little bit of mold. There wasn't even that much mold.
Right.
But we're going to remove everyone from that building, and we're not going to let people there. And they knocked down, or they're planning to knock down solid housing, and yet they let other people move in. So it's a question of fairness. It's not,
right.
You can look at the law.
Joel, stay on the line. We do have to take a short station break. Please stay on the line, and we'll come back with you and the rest of our guests after a short station break. We want you to know you're listening to Inside Housing. I'm your host and producer, Nellie Hester Bailey, along with HYJA WORLEY in the studios of WHCR Radio 90.3 FM on your dial, the voice of Harlem Radio. We'll be right back.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Joel, are you still there? Okay, so we're back on the air here. Now, the NYCHA just announced that we had 21, Reverend Williams talked about this first, Grant Houses being one of them, 21 public housing complexes. They were built by the city or state. They were federalized because the city and state stopped funding them for operational as well as major capital improvement, their capital budget. And so they were federalized, and pursuant to a stimulus package measure, Grant Housing, along with others, were turned over to Citigroup, the third largest bank here in the country, as a ownership entity. HUD and some of the other housing activists who are close to HUD are very careful about saying, oh, no, they just have a 99-year lease and they can borrow whatever they want and create whatever debt that they want. But so it's not really owned by Citigroup, but of course it really is owned by Citigroup. Right. So let's talk about that a little bit in terms of what has actually happened in terms of privatizing public housing.
Yeah, then I got to get it right off of that because people are loading up in my office.
Okay, all right. Yeah. All right, so why don't you address that briefly, and then we'll let you go, and you can come back next week to talk more about this. Go ahead, Joel. Okay,
we're very concerned about the loss of title. NYCHA has been on the claims that there isn't enough money out there. They always seem to find money for something along the lines, especially in the line of increasing real estate tax revenues. Have been basically creating credit swaps or whatever, for want of almost a better word, that they're giving title to some of these buildings on long-range 99-year leases to the banks. And we're very concerned that we know from all the mortgage foreclosures and everything else is that it's a very bad slippery slope that once the city starts giving up ownership or rights to control these buildings, that eventually the banks are going to be, calling, are going to end up owning these buildings on the grounds that the debt wasn't paid, and basically saying the mortgage wasn't paid.
Exactly. And who's going to be around 99 years later to challenge them? All right, Joel Kupferman.
Right, and also I just want to point out that I'm part of the National Lawyers Guild.
Yes.
Housing Committee, the Environmental Justice Committee, and a few other committees, actually, and we're convening a meeting right now to figure out the best way we could offer legal services in terms of keeping people in their homes, and also to make sure that even with these temporary leases that they're proposing, the tenants are protected.
Let me just put a bug in your ear.
Sure.
Over at the Heritage, formerly known as the Lionel Hampton, 110th Street and 5th Avenue, tenants are being displaced. Here's what they've done to them. Here's what they're doing to them. They're refusing to do repairs in apartments so that HUD will not pay their stipend, so that the rent will gain up to $6,000 and $7,000 in arrears. Then they take them into housing court and get them evicted from their apartment. This has happened to some of a turnaround from 80% African American and Latino to 49% African American Latino residents still in the building, while their counterparts have increased some 65%. So get one of your investigators over there to check that out, please.
Joel,
yes.
Let's have you back next week so we can talk about it, and we'll finish up with what Reverend Williams started.
If you want, I could even just announce an email address that people could send in their concerns.
Yes.
Okay, it's lawproject at earthlink.net.
Law Project, that's LAWPROJECT at earthlink, EARTHLINK.net.
Right.
All right, Joel, you're going to come on next week to tell us more about this.
And we're at your service.
Okay, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Now, Reverend Williams said something very important, because if tenants receive Section 8 vouchers, they have to be recertified annually.
That's right.
And part of the recertification process is a housing inspection that the tenant has to pass.
That's right.
And so if the apartment is not up to code, they will not get that, they will stop
giving the landlord
stipend.
the stipend.
They will stop giving the landlord the stipend. And so what Reverend Williams is talking about, so the landlord deliberately withholds services and not make repairs. And so there's only a certain length of time that that Section 8 will allow this situation to go on without those repairs being done, because what they say to the tenant is, you should move, and we're not going to be here a year later or 6 months later. And so the landlord uses that as an excuse to accumulate arrears, and then to deliberately withhold services and not make repairs, and then sue the tenants when they have lost the subsidies. So let's get back to what you folks have noticed again. Now we talked about Red Hook, and the situation is the same in Far Rockaway, but there are public housing tenants there.
Well, in Far Rockaway, we went to Beach 25. Beach 25 is south of the affluent area, west of the projects, or southwest of the projects. And this area, people were coming from other areas to this location where we were we just set up in a parking lot of a supermarket. Not a supermarket, but a laundromat. Mm-hmm. We just went in there, set up, and the people started coming. And the first day, I'm sure we fed and clothed over 1,000 people. The second day, more of the same, and then some other people came out and they joined on with us, and then we created a team there. Go ahead, Sister Dear.
Okay. Just also on the second day, volunteers also brought more clothing and hot food, because when we were there on the first day, we listened to the needs and the situation everyone was in. And first and foremost, if you're cold and hungry, you just, we know that we can't function in a regular day. If you're hungry, you just can't get things done. So we also brought hot food on our second day there.
Well, let's talk about this because we are expecting someone else to call in. But if someone is listening today, as we hope that a lot of people are, what can they do to help with this relief effort, and how do they get in touch with you?
Okay. Well, of course, if you don't have my number, get a pen. I'm going to give it to you in a minute. I need right now apple cider vinegar. Let me say that again. I need apple cider vinegar. It's about $2.50 a bottle. I wish that every one of your listeners would go and buy a bottle and then bring it to 63 West 124th Street. Why? Well, in every community that we went to, the local hospital, even the senior citizen housings have been evacuated. People are having bacterial infections and rashes. And I understand that apple cider vinegar kills the bacteria. So when we go, we want to give them that and say, here, do yourself a sponge bath with this. And this will help you until you can get to a medical station. And then I challenge our mayor to get some mobile stations to these areas in Far Rockaway, in Red Hook, in Canarsie, in Coney Island, and in Staten Island. Not where the relief stations are. No. Get those mobile units out into the hood where our people were suffering before this, and now they're suffering 100 times worth with this disaster. We saw people with rashes on their hands and their face.
Where is this coming from? Is it from the contaminated
from the
water? It's from the mold?
From the mold and the contaminated water. That's what it's from. Mm-hmm. That's what it's from. Because, you'll tell the people, don't drink the water's no good. But when a person comes thirsty, have you ever been thirsty to the point of thirst? And then you see water there? And then, well, you know what? I'm going to try to boil this and drink it. It doesn't kill the bacteria. I'm going to try to boil this and wash because I can't smell like this because I am a decent person. It doesn't kill the bacteria.
What is the source of this bacteria? Because I understand
it's the feces and other contaminants in the water.
Yeah.
And then it's also the mold that has grown because of the salt water mixing with the plaster and the paint and what have you.
Oh my goodness!
See, what I need to make people understand is what we've seen with our eyes. The media is not showing, but it is horrendous out there. It is frightening out there. And then you'll find that there are a group of people that they'll wait until dusk and they'll come and run out real quick and grab what they can grab and try to get back to the safety and lock themselves behind their doors because of the element of danger out there. This is too surreal for anyone to try to whitewash it. And that's what I'm going to use, whitewash it. For anyone to try to whitewash it, it is too surreal. I'm telling you, for the first hour and a half that I was out on Far Rockaway, I was emotionally crippled. I just was standing there and smiling. They would say, Rev, what you doing? Come over here and do something. But I couldn't do anything. I was stunned.
I understand that that the lights are still out, there's no power, and which means that there are no elevators. And I understand, I don't know about Far Rockaway, but in Red Hook, it's about 6 or 7 stories. And so how are the elderly folks doing?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening in Red Hook and Far Rockaway and in Coney Island. We put out a call to the Nation of Islam. And they were already on the streets doing something every Monday. But when we proposed to them that we needed brothers to run up them stairs and check out what was going on, the brother Muhammad texted me back, on it, Rev. These are volunteers. Just like myself, just like Dia. These are volunteers saying, you know what, we're stepping up. I'm always stepping up.
We know
that's why I'm single. But anyway, I'm always stepping up. But these are volunteers stepping up and saying, you know what, we got to go see what's going on over here because, this is my grandmother's building. This is where I used to have Thanksgiving dinner. And they're coming, and that brings me to say that if we don't, this coming Thanksgiving season, turn and look. If I sit down at a table with a bunch of people and carve up a turkey and some ham and some of that stuff, and I know I haven't done anything for these 5 communities, that would be the day that I probably would drop dead. We can't sit back and say, oh, the cavalry, General Custer's going to take care of it. No. Oh, the pastors, no. We as people in the community have to do something about it.
Well, in addition to the vinegar, which is needed as
baby clothes, I'm receiving
clothing.
Baby clothes. I'm receiving coats, all sizes. I'm receiving Pampers. I'm receiving ready-to-eat food. Ready-to-eat food, because guess what? If I ain't got no electricity, I can't heat nothing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So I understand that in some of the buildings, is it true that NYCHA had some emergency generators that were at least being used so that the elevators were working? Is that true?
I did not notice that in any of the locations where I was.
I didn't see
Just
that
propaganda, huh?
I did not notice that in any of the. I can say this about Coney Island. We were on 28th, something like that. We were on 28th or 25th Street in Coney Island and Mermaid. And during the time that we were there, we saw, these NYCHA workers, yeomen, they were getting down. And before we left, 2 buildings had lights. Because they were working. We came, come on over and get something to eat. They said, no, we got to do this. And they came, one lady that we were talking with, she came all the way from the Bronx. And she said, I've been out here, we got to complete this building. We got to. And there were other what do you call it? City contractors, people that came out and they were pumping out basements and things of that nature. And so there is a progression, there is work happening, but at the same time there is tremendous suffering. So my only play, if I'm playing a card here now, is to say that we need more volunteers.
Well, you mentioned the sort of random violence, and but where's NYPD? I mean, they stopped and frisked over 700, mostly Latino and African American men in 1 year. Where is the presence of the NYPD in this emergency situation?
Everywhere I've been, they have been present. I've seen them everywhere, and I've seen them really trying to do over and above job.
But
as a matter of fact, I would say
just not the numbers.
I got to be honest with you. NYPD has done over and above a great job. Far Rockaway, Canarsie, Coney Island. They have even gathered resources and has been distributing resources.
Yeah, they did it on the Lower East Side. I was
but
at
I got
a
to be
center.
honest with you.
Yeah.
It's us doing this to us. These are sexual assaults that you're going to be hearing about in the next couple of weeks, because they're trying to hold it down right now. For what reason, I don't know. That's us doing us. These dudes who's taking...
Are these gangs or just individuals or both?
These gangs are opportunists. These are not gangs. These are opportunists who are known in the community, who are banded together. As a matter of fact, when we were on B25 and in Far Rockaway, the thugs was volunteering and working with us. So that thug thing, I throw that out the window. No, it's not them. It's some individual opportunists that are using this and hoarding, taking stuff and putting it in their house and then selling it back to the people who have a couple of dollars in their hand that have a need. That's what it is. It's not anything unusual. We've seen this before. We've seen this during World War II and during the shortages.
It was on the Lower East Side and around the city. People would come 3 or 4 times, different clothes, getting relief packages and selling it and whatever. But you raised the issue of sexual assault, and that is very, very. Are these assaults going unreported, not reported?
I think a great many of them are going unreported. Some are being reported, but a great many of them are going unreported.
Who are generally the target? I would imagine young women.
Yeah, of course. I haven't heard any incidents of young boys, but what I do know is that it's concentrated in the poverty areas, around the projects, those areas. The 2 things that we noticed in every community that we went to was the liquor store was open and the crack spot was open.
Whoa.
And had lights.
So the
and had lights. Do you
so
hear
the
me?
drug business went on
and
without a hitch.
and the
Right.
liquor business, and had lights.
How did they manage that?
I don't know if they had a
Must
personal
have had
generator,
generator or whatever.
I don't know what it is, but they had lights. You don't believe me? Go right now to Mermaid in 19th. Mermaid in 20th, and call in and tell me what you see. Because all I got is the truth. That's all I can give you.
So what's next?
Well, next.
How do people? You need to give out your address again
yeah.
and the telephone. We need to do that 2 or 3 times.
Okay, we'll take those donations at 63 West 124th Street. Now, if you want to get on our informational list, our server list, as Nellie was talking about, receiving texts from me at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, that number is 917-545-4613. Let me repeat that, 917-545-4613.
Just one more time.
917-545-4613. Now, with that, all you have to do is text your name to us. We'll add you on the list, and I hope you have unlimited texting, or you're going to be upset.
Right. And to drop off your drop-off center for food,
Yeah.
clothing, because I got some things in my house together,
Yeah.
mostly coats and
Drop
winter
them
hats.
off 24 hours at 63 West 124th Street. Let them know that this is for Reverend Williams for the Relief Fund. We're going out to Far Rockaway tomorrow. Wednesday we'll be in Staten Island. Saturday we'll be in Coney Island.
Okay, that's
No, Saturday we're
Back
back
to
in.
Far Rockaway.
Friday we're in Coney Island. Saturday we're back at Far Rockaway.
So this is 63 West 124th. And what are the cross streets?
Lenox Avenue and Mount Morris Park West.
Okay, and it's first floor,
First floor, just tell the security guard this is for Reverend Williams, and they'll take it from you and they'll store it until I get there.
Okay, and if anyone wanted to volunteer to help you out, to go out with you,
Well,
to
if you
help
want-
with,
If you wanted to meet up with us on tomorrow morning, we will be pulling out at 11 a.m. I think we have 2 spaces open. I have a gentleman who's going to be bringing people in his car. My car is pretty much going to be filled, but we will have another car. You can get in that car. Or if it comes to that, I got 30, 40 volunteers. Like I said, we can pick up the phone, and one of our city agencies will give us a passenger van to get out to the area.
all right, and just one more time, not to be repetitious here, but give your schedule for the week so that if you want to volunteer, listen up closely. You can do something. You don't have to just sit home and watch the news, but you can get involved. You can go out. You can volunteer your car. You can call Reverend Williams. You can do any number of things, but all it takes is a personal commitment and just getting off that couch, watching TV, and doing something. Now, Dia, tell us about your schedule for the rest of this week.
Okay, so what are we doing?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay, tomorrow morning we're leaving at the location that Rev said, 63rd West, 124th Street. 124th Street. We plan on leaving at 11 a.m. and we are heading out to where?
Far Rockaway.
Far Rockaway. Okay.
And then Wednesday
on
was
Wednesday,
Staten Island.
going to Staten Island, same thing, 11 a.m. Hopefully.
And then
hopefully.
Friday, we're back in
Back.
Coney Island.
No, yeah. Coney Island is Friday.
Right.
And Saturday?
is
Saturday back to Far Rockaway. Now,
Okay.
simultaneously, while this is happening, we have our people in Red Hook and in Canarsie. As a matter of fact, while we're sitting here now, Tony Herbert is in Canarsie, and Jeffrey Lane is in Red Hook, working. I mean, because we're not. We're just two persons, so we can't be everywhere.
But
And then
Robert-
there's Tylon Murphy. There's Fathers in the Hood that's doing this. There's
Right.
the Chicken Foundation. There's not another child, Harlem Mother Saved. There's so many organizations that are part of this. We call ourselves a citywide coalition. And
so talk a little bit more about the citywide coalition that really is composed of these organizations run by people of color, Latinos and African Americans for the most part that you've named.
Yeah. Some years ago, I started the Harlem Clergy and Community Leaders Coalition. And from that, I saw that I was getting more people coming to the coalition that were from other parts of the city. So after sitting down with Sister Davina Perez, who's basically a promoter, she came up with the idea that, we should have a citywide coalition. So, and the citywide coalition consists of groups of smaller anti-gun and anti-youth violence volunteers from Brooklyn and Staten Island and from Queens and from the Bronx and, of course, from Harlem. So we've come together. We're about, I would say, roughly 24 organizations strong, including Harlem Mothers Saved. And we meet monthly, either phone conversations or we meet physically. We had a meeting physically last night out in Brooklyn, and we talk about what we want to do. Over the years, we've done I think 4 citywide ride, walk, and rallies for peace, in which SUVs and motorcycle clubs and other agencies joined on with us, and politicians for that matter. And when this disaster hit, we immediately mobilized. We immediately mobilized. After I think it was 2 hours after, I said, okay, now I put out the blast. Okay, now for us to get involved with the aftermath, we got to go. And stuff started coming in.
How have the churches responded?
Michael Tucker out in Brooklyn went to
Some
Golden
of the big
Cross.
churches like Convent.
Michael Tucker from Put
Abyssinia.
Down the Guns went out to Golden Crust, and they donated food from Golden Crust. And Sister Davina, I did not hear your question. I chose to go around your question because I'm still trying to engage those folks in doing something.
I see. Okay. Well, listen, folks. This about wrap it up for us. You've been listening to Inside Housing. I'm your host and producer, Nellie Hester Bailey, here in the studios at WHCR with HYJA, Worley, and Reverend Williams and Diaz, our guest. And just one more time, Reverend, what is that telephone number?
917-545-4613. That's 917-545-4613. Again, 917-545-4613. Just text me your name.
Okay, folks, there you have it. You've got no excuse because you can become involved. You can make a contribution. You can make a difference. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back here on Monday, right here in the studios of WHCR 90.3 FM on your dial. Thank you so much for listening.
Many fine speeches, oh yeah, from the White House staff, written on the cue cards that were never really there. Yes, but the heat in the summer was there, and the breeze in the winter cold. Tell me who paid reparations on my soul? Who paid reparations? 'Cause I don't dig segregation, but I can't get integration.
WHCR 90.3 FM, New York.
Do you hear me? Soul, soul, soul.
Live in the mix, from 3 to 6, each and every Thursday morning. It's Mystic Vibes with your host, Mike Stoops, on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, New York, New York, New York, New York, New York.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Hello, and you are listening to Techno Color Radio Show. I, Lena, am here in the studio just about to play my wonderful theme song, but slightly delayed on that simply because Technology today has not been my friends. I'm sure you have all had that day where stuff is going really well, except for in the digital landscape where not much goes well sometimes. Some days your technology turns against you, and it's supposed to be that you act like it didn't turn against you, that it's not turning against you currently, but you know, it happens. And I've learned to accept when it happens as just what it is, and that it's not about me, that the technology doesn't actually hate me, that the technology is what it is, not because of me or in spite of me, but that perhaps, if I play it just right, I can convince the technology to be my friend, to not treat me so harshly, so meanly. Because quite frankly, I did nothing to the technology. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe I was supposed to do something, have it be my friend. I don't know. But today is one of those days when the world has turned against me. It doesn't like me. It's not going to like me. And I don't know what to do to make it like me. So, today, I think I may go without the ability to play my theme song, though I love my theme song. Technocolor Show has a great theme song. Maybe I can play it here? Maybe it's there? Let's try.
So crafty, like most of us.
Not
most
yet.
Of us
Hello, and you are listening to Technocolor Radio Show.
You are listening to Technocolor on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Hello, and you are listening to Technocolor Radio Show today. I have got plenty to talk about. I do. I have plenty to talk about, and some of what I'm going to talk about today includes stuff I should have been talking about a while ago. The main one being the president. We have the same president we did before, but, you know, what happened with that online? One of the things I didn't get to talk about last week, when we had so many people calling in and so much excitement here in the studio, was I didn't get to talk about the debate and what happened with debate remixes. That's right, there were people who went out, took footage of the debate, and made new versions, new cuts, new kind of beautiful varieties of remixed culture. Now, I know we've talked about remix culture, where you take some media in front of you and you make it into a new one. And I'm going to go ahead and play one. Here it is.
Tonight we witness the final contest.
2 men enter and 2 men shall leave, but each must answer now my questions 3.
Yeah. Alright, okay, now how could we ship all these jobs to Shanghai when America invented the chicken pot pie?
We have brought cases against China for violating trade rules. We are going to insist that China plays by the same rules.
They're hacking into our computers, counterfeiting our goods, stealing our intellectual property, our patents, our designs.
Okay.
China's a potential partner if it's following the rules.
We want to trade with them, but you gotta play by the rules.
Now that we're finally bringing troops home, won't the Afghans be lonely when they're all alone?
When Afghans are perfectly capable of defending their own country,
Yeah.
there's no reason why Americans should die.
The Taliban, they're going to come rushing back in when we go. The Afghan forces have to be able to provide secure
Why
time.
should you run the show?
We decimated Al-Qaeda's core.
Tell us, cause we need to know.
I want to bring jobs back to our shores.
2 more weeks until we vote.
We need to have strong allies.
Who can really run the show?
My strategy is to go after the bad guys.
Is the threat from Iran getting overblown? Or should I use my Xbox to bomb them with drones?
Their economy is in shambles. We've organized the strongest sanctions in history.
Crippling sanctions do work. You're seeing it now.
I'm glad Romney agrees. They want to see Israel wiped off the map.
If Israel's attacked, we have their back.
Israel's a true friend. America will stand with them.
Should we increase our military size so we can keep killing every single bad guy?
Our Navy is smaller now than any time since 1917. I want to make sure that we have the ships that are required by our Navy.
You mentioned that we have fewer ships. We also have fewer horses and bayonets because our military's changed.
Why should you run the show?
We decimated Al-Qaeda's core.
Tell us, cause we need to
I
know.
want to bring jobs back to our shores.
2 more weeks until we vote.
We need to have strong allies.
Who can really run the show?
My strategy is to go after the bad guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all, folks. She's out now, but to go home. Been a long day, so it's time to get my drink on. 90 minutes I've been spitting about a foreign policy. 90 minutes I've been sipping on a glass of Hennessy. Let me leave you with a thought from my mom. Go out and vote, makes you feel big and strong.
Debates are better as musical.
So I thought that this was a rather neat remix. These people auto-tuned the Romney and Obama, the debates themselves. They replaced the main thing, and the video itself is very engaging. I'm going to go ahead and play another remix right here. This one is from Mike Relm, who is known for his awesomeness.
I'm from California. As an Asian American, I would just like to drop a beat so that you can have a chance to summarize the things that you've said throughout these debates.
Bring down rates, rod on the bass, 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 bass. Oh shit. Bring down rates, rod on the bass, 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 bass. Oh shit. Double down, double down on the bass, bass. Double down on the bass. Talk about the challenges. But you have to have a plan. Step up, step up. But you have to have a plan. Talk about the challenges. But you have to have a plan. Step up, step up. But you have to have a plan. Oh my goodness, binders full of women. Oh my goodness, binders full of women. Bring down rates, rod on the bass, 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 bass. Oh. Bring down rates, rod on the bass, 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 bass. Oh. Double down on the bass, bass. Double down on the bass.
I want you to be able to get a job. I know what it takes.
We're going in the wrong direction. We're going in the wrong direction.
I want you to be able to get a job. I know what it takes.
We're going in the wrong direction. We're going in the wrong direction.
I love Big Bird. I like you too. Will the economy get better soon? I love Big Bird. I like you too. Oh, what's she gonna do? This is a bunch of stuff. This president doesn't muff. Yeah, you have to have a plan. Yeah, you have to have a plan. This is a bunch of stuff. This president doesn't muff. Yeah, you have to have a plan. Yeah, you have to have a plan.
Yeah. Alright, okay now. Yeah.
Play by the rules.
The same rules like Romney agrees.
Play by the rules.
The same rules like Romney agrees.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, binders full of women. Oh my goodness, binders full of women. Big bird, big bird, big bird, big bird.
Thank you. Wow, that was not bad.
Hey, I'm Mike Relm. Big shout out to the Gregory.
So I thought it was pretty great. And it was just one of the reactions to the debates that happened that was so much fun to see all of these people get involved in politics by remixing video, putting it out there, getting hits on those things where, you know, sometimes it can be hard to sit down, watch the debates, and just really engage with it. But it gets so much easier when you know that if you see the debates, when you see a remix like this, when you hear it, you were part of that historic event of watching, of engaging, of remaking culture. So I just thought that was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to play Jeff Hancock's 3 Types of Digital Lies. Now this is a recent video that is coming out of a TED conference at TED Winnipeg. So he's in Winnipeg, Canada, and it shows in some of the talk. But I'm going to go ahead and just let that roll, and then I will be back at about 7:30 to talk more about what's going on in technology today. But to start with, I thought 3 types of digital lies would be a great talk to share with everyone. I kind of love the TED theme music.
Let me tell you, it has been a fantastic month for deception. And I'm not even talking about the American presidential race. We have a high-profile journalist caught for plagiarism, a young superstar writer whose book involves so many made-up quotes that they've pulled it from the shelves, a New York Times expose on fake book reviews. It's been fantastic. Now, of course, not all deception hits the news. Much of the deception is every day. In fact, a lot of research shows that we all lie once or twice a day, as Dave suggested. So it's about 6:30 now, suggests that most of us should have lied. Let's take a look at Winnipeg. How many of you in the last 24 hours, think back, have told a little fib, or a big one? How many have told a little lie out there? All right, good. These are all the liars. Make sure you pay attention to them. No, that looked good. It was about 2/3 of you. The other third didn't lie, or perhaps forgot, or you're lying to me about your lying, which is very, very devious. This fits with a lot of the research, which suggests that lying is very pervasive. It's this pervasiveness combined with the centrality to what it means to be a human, the fact that we can tell the truth or make something up, that has fascinated people throughout history. Here we have Diogenes with his lantern. Does anybody know what he was looking for? A single honest man, and he died without finding one back in Greece. And we have Confucius in the East, who was really concerned with sincerity. Not only that you walked the walk or talked the talk, but that you believed in what you were doing. You believed in your principles. Now, my first professional encounter with deception is a little bit later than these guys, a couple thousand years. I was a customs officer for Canada back in the mid-90s. Yep. I was defending Canada's borders. You may think that's a weapon right there. In fact, that's a stamp. I used a stamp to defend Canada's borders. Very Canadian of me. I learned a lot about deception while doing my duty here in customs, one of which was that most of what I thought I knew about deception was wrong, and I'll tell you about some of that tonight. But even since just 1995, 96, the way we communicate has been completely transformed. We email, we text, we Skype, we Facebook. It's insane. Almost every aspect of human communication has been changed. And of course, that's had an impact on deception. Let me tell you a little bit about a couple of new deceptions we've been tracking and documenting. They're called the butler, the sock puppet, and the Chinese water army. It sounds a little bit like a weird book, but actually they're all new types of lies. Let's start with the butlers. Here's an example of one. On my way. Anybody ever written on my way? Then you've also lied. We're never on our way. We're thinking about going on our way. Here's another one. Sorry I didn't respond to you earlier. My battery was dead. Your battery wasn't dead. You weren't in a dead zone. You just didn't want to respond to that person that time. Here's the last one. You're talking to somebody and you say, oh, sorry, got work, gotta go. But really you're just bored. You want to talk to somebody else. Each of these is about a relationship. And this is a 24/7 connected world. Once you get my cell phone number, you can literally be in touch with me 24 hours a day. And so these lies are being used by people to create a buffer, like the butler used to do, between us and the connections to everybody else. But they're very special. They use ambiguity that comes from using technology. You don't know where I am or what I'm doing or who I'm with. And they're aimed at protecting the relationships. These aren't just people being jerks. These are people that are saying, look, I don't want to talk to you now, or I didn't want to talk to you then, but I still care about you. Our relationship is still important. Now, the sock puppet, on the other hand, is a totally different animal. The sock puppet isn't about ambiguity per se. It's about identity. Let me give you a very recent example, as in like last week. Here's R.J. Ellery, bestseller author in Britain. Here's one of his best-selling books. Here's a reviewer online on Amazon. My favorite by Nicodemus Jones is, whatever else it might do, it will touch your soul. And of course, you might suspect that Nicodemus Jones is R.J. Ellery. He wrote very, very positive reviews about himself, surprise, surprise. Now, this sock puppet stuff isn't actually that new. Walt Whitman also did this back in the day before there was internet technology. Sock puppet becomes interesting when we get to scale, which is the domain of the Chinese Water Army. Chinese Water Army refers to thousands of people in China that are paid small amounts of money to produce content. It could be reviews, it could be propaganda. The government hires these people, companies hire them all over the place. In North America, we call this astroturfing. And astroturfing is very common now. There's a lot of concerns about it. We see this especially with product reviews, book reviews, everything from hotels to whether that toaster is a good toaster or not. Now, looking at these three reviews, or these three types of deception, you might think, wow, the internet is really making us a deceptive species. Especially when you think about the astroturfing, where we can see deception brought up to scale. But actually, what I've been finding is very different from that. Now, let's put aside the online anonymous sex chat rooms, which I'm sure none of you have been in. I can assure you there's deception there. And let's put aside the Nigerian prince who's emailed you about getting the 43 million out of the country. Let's forget about that guy too. Let's focus on the conversations between our friends and our family and our co-workers and our loved ones. Those are the conversations that really matter. What does technology do to deception with those folks? Here's a couple of studies. One of the studies we do are called diary studies, in which we ask people to record all of their conversations and all of their lies for 7 days. And what we can do then is calculate how many lies took place per conversation within a medium. And the finding that we get that surprises people the most is that email is the most honest of those three media. And it really throws people for a loop because we think, well, there's no nonverbal cues, so why don't you lie more? The phone, in contrast, the most lies. Again and again and again, we see the phone is the device that people lie on the most. And perhaps because of the Butler lie ambiguities I was telling you about. This tends to be very different from what people expect. What about resumes? We did a study in which we had people apply for a job, and they could apply for a job either with a traditional paper resume or on LinkedIn, which is a social networking site like Facebook, but for professionals. It involves the same information as a resume. And what we found, to many people's surprise, was that those LinkedIn resumes were more honest on the things that mattered to employers, like your responsibilities or your skills at your previous job. How about Facebook itself? You know, we always think that, hey, there are these idealized versions. People are just showing the best things that happen in their lives. I've thought that many times. My friends, no way they can be that cool and have that good of a life. Well, one study tested this by examining people's personalities. They had 4 good friends of a person, judge their personality. Then they had strangers, many strangers, judge the person's personality just from Facebook. And what they found was those judgments of personality were pretty much identical, highly correlated, meaning that Facebook profiles really do reflect our actual personality. All right, well, what about online dating? I mean, that's a pretty deceptive space. I'm sure you all have friends that have used online dating. And they would tell you about that guy that had no hair when he came, or the woman that didn't look at all like her photo. Well, we were really interested in it. And so what we did is we brought people, online daters, into the lab. And then we measured them. We got their height up against the wall. We put them on a scale, got their weight. Ladies love that. And then we actually got their driver's license to get their age. And what we found was very, very interesting. Here's an example of the men and the height. Along the bottom is how tall they said they were in their profile. Along the y-axis, the up vertical axis, is how tall they actually were. That diagonal line is the truth line. If there are dots on it, they were telling exactly the truth.
And what's interesting is the lines are all pretty close. There's not a lot of outliers on height.
As you see, most of the little dots are below the line. what it means is all the guys were lying about their height. In fact, they lied about their height about 9/10 of an inch, what we say in the lab as strong rounding up. You get to 5/8 and 1/10 and boom, 5'9". But what's really important here is look at all those dots. They are clustering pretty close to truth. What we found was 80% of our participants did indeed lie on one of those dimensions, but they always lied by a little bit. One of the reasons is pretty simple. If you go to a date, a coffee date, and you're completely different than what you said, game over. Right? So people lied frequently, but they lied subtly, not too much. They were constrained. Well, what explains all these things? What explains the fact that despite our intuitions, mine included, a lot of online communication, technologically mediated communication, is more honest than face-to-face? That really is strange. How do we explain this? Well, to do that, one thing is we can look at the deception detection literature. It's a very old literature by now. It's coming up on 50 years. It's been reviewed many times. There's been thousands of trials, hundreds of studies. And there's some really compelling findings. The first is we're really bad at detecting deception. Really bad. 54% accuracy on average when you have to tell if somebody that just said a statement is lying or not. That's really bad. Why is it so bad? Well, it has to do with Pinocchio's nose. If I were to ask you guys, what do you rely on when you're looking at somebody and you want to find out if they're lying? What cue do you pay attention to? Most of you would say that one of the cues you look at is the eyes. The eyes are the wind of the soul. And you're not alone. Around the world, almost every culture, one of the top cues is eyes. But the research over the last 50 years says there's actually no reliable cue to deception, which blew me away. And it's one of the hard lessons I learned when I was a customs officer. The eyes do not tell us whether somebody's lying or not. Some situations, yes, high stakes, maybe their pupils dilate, their pitch goes up, their body movements change a little bit, but not all the time, not for everybody, it's not reliable. Strange. The other thing is that just because you can't see me doesn't mean I'm going to lie. It's common sense, but one important finding is that we lie for a reason. We lie to protect ourselves or for our own gain or for somebody else's gain. So there are some pathological liars, but they make up a tiny portion of the population. We lie for a reason. Just because people can't see us doesn't mean we're going to necessarily lie. But I think there's actually something much more interesting and fundamental going on here. The next big thing for me, the next big idea, we can find by going way back in history to the origins of language. Most linguists agree that we started speaking somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 years ago. That's a long time ago. A lot of humans have lived since then. We've been talking, I guess, about fires and caves and saber-toothed tigers. I don't know what they talked about, but they were doing a lot of talking. And like I said, there's a lot of humans evolving, speaking. About 100 billion people, in fact. What's important, though, is that writing only emerged about 5,000 years ago. So what that means is that all the people before there was any writing, every word that they ever said, every utterance disappeared. No trace. Evanescent, gone. So we've been evolving to talk in a way in which there is no record. In fact, even the next big change to writing was only 500 years ago now with the printing press, which is very recent in our past, and literacy rates remained incredibly low right up until World War II. So even the people of the last two millennia, most of the words they ever said disappeared. Let's turn to now, the networked age. How many of you have recorded something today? Anybody do any writing today? Did anybody write a word? It looks like almost every single person here recorded something. In this room right now, we've probably recorded more than almost all of human pre-ancient history. That is crazy. We're entering this amazing period of flux in human evolution where we've evolved to speak in a way in which our words disappear, but we're in an environment where we're recording everything. In fact, I think in the very near future, it's not just what we write that will be recorded, everything we do will be recorded. What does that mean? What's the next big idea from that? Well, as a social scientist, this is the most amazing thing I have ever even dreamed of. Now, I can look at all of those words that used to, for millennia, disappear. I can look at lies that before were said and then gone. You remember those astroturfing reviews that we were talking about before. Well, when they write a fake review, they have to post it somewhere, and it's left behind for us. So one thing that we did, I'll give you an example of looking at the language, is we paid people to write some fake reviews. One of these reviews is fake. The person never was at the James Hotel. The other review is real. The person stayed there. Now, your task now is to decide which review is fake. I'll give you a moment to read through them, but I want everybody to raise their hand at some point. Remember, I study deception. I can tell if you don't raise your hand.
So the two things on A is I have stayed at many hotels, traveling for both business and pleasure, and I can honestly say that the James is tops. The service at the hotel is first class. The rooms are modern and very comfortable. The location is perfect, within walking distance to all the great sites and restaurants. Highly recommended to both business travelers and couples. Or B, my husband and I stayed at the James Chicago Hotel for our anniversary. This place is fantastic. We knew as soon as we arrived we made the right choice. The rooms are beautiful and the staff very attractive and wonderful. The area of the hotel is great. Since I love to shop, I couldn't ask for more. We will definitely be back to Chicago, and we will be for sure we will be back at the James Chicago.
All right. How many of you believe that A is the fake? All right, very good, about half. And how many of you think that B is? All right, slightly more for B. Excellent. Here's the answer. B is the fake. Well done, second group. You dominated the first group. You're actually a little bit unusual. Every time we demonstrate this, it's usually about a 50-50 split, which fits with the research, 54%. Maybe people here in Winnipeg are more suspicious and better at figuring it out. It's cold, hard winters. I love it. All right, so why do I care about this? Well, what I can do now with my colleagues in computer science is we can create computer algorithms that can analyze the linguistic traces of deception. Let me highlight a couple of things here in the fake review. The first is that liars tend to think about narrative. They make up a story, who and what happened. And that's what happened here. Our fake reviewers talked about who they were with and what they were doing. They also used the first person singular, I, way more than the people that actually stayed there. They were inserting themselves into the hotel review, kind of trying to convince you were there. In contrast, the people that wrote the reviews that were actually there, their bodies were actually entered the physical space, they talked a lot more about spatial information. They said how big the bathroom was, or they said, you know, here's how far shopping is from the hotel. Now, you guys did pretty well. Most people perform at chance at this task. Our computer algorithm is very accurate, much more accurate than humans can be. And it's not going to be accurate all the time. This isn't a deception detection machine to tell if your girlfriend's lying to you on text messaging. We believe that every lie now, every type of lie, fake hotel reviews, fake shoe reviews, your girlfriend cheating on you with text messaging, those are all different lies. They're going to have different patterns of language. But because everything's recorded now, we can look at all of those kinds of lies. Now, as I said, as a social scientist, this is wonderful. It's transformational. We're going to be able to learn so much more about human thought and expression, about everything from love to attitudes, because everything is being recorded now. But what does it mean for the average citizen? What does it mean for us in our lives? Well, let's forget deception for a bit. One of the big ideas, I believe, is that we're leaving these huge traces behind. My inbox and outbox for email is massive, and I never look at it. I write all the time, but I never look at my record, at my trace. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, where we can reflect on who we are by looking at what we wrote, what we said, what we did. Now, if we bring it back to deception, there's a couple of takeaway things here. First, lying online can be very dangerous, right? Not only are you leaving a record for yourself on your machine, but you're leaving a record on the person that you were lying to. And you're also leaving them around for me to analyze with some computer algorithms. So by all means, go ahead and do that. That's good. But when it comes to lying and what we want to do with our lives, I think we can go back to Diogenes and Confucius, and they were less concerned about whether to lie or not to lie, and more concerned about being true to the self. And I think this is really important. Now, when you are about to say or do something, we can think, do I want this to be part of my legacy, part of my personal record? Because in the digital age we live in now, in the networked age, we are all leaving a record. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck with your record.
So I quite like this notion that your record is there. You can learn more about yourself. You can track yourself. You can quantify your own experiences. I just think it's one of those things that are actually kind of lovely to be able to think about. But this idea that algorithms can know truth from fiction, that's where it starts to get a little wonky, a little weird, a little scary. But it's also still very interesting. Alright, so speaking of ethics and deception, an unknown number of Twitter accounts have been compromised. It is time to change your password. TechCrunch reported that a number of users received an email from Twitter that their accounts had been compromised and they should change their passwords. These users are finding spammy tweets coming from their accounts, and this people tweeting about password problems show that the issue is pretty widespread. And Twitter didn't know how many people were affected, but it's interesting to see, to consider how secure is your Twitter feed, are tweets you didn't write going out there. Keep track of it. Even if you're not big on Twitter, it's something to keep in mind, to know about. But it is what it is. So another kind of cool bit of tech that came out that I look at and I go, oh, that is cool, is the iRock. The iRock is a new chair that was developed by the Swiss furniture retailer Miskaza, who made this chair that charges an iPad or an iPhone as you rock. The idea is that you can collect the energy that rocking the chair back and forth generates. So if you use an iRock for 60 minutes, you can charge your iPad to 35%. Currently, it's being handcrafted out of Swedish pine wood, and it has an iPad dock with a set of built-in speakers in the backrest. So it looks like a classic, traditional chair, but it has a little generator on the back, and it costs as much as some people pay for a used car, or for a brand new Mac computer. But it just is so kind of cool, this idea of you rocking in a chair, and it also makes a fair amount of sense to be looking at this technology in a world where access to the grid has blipped off due to our storms. But things are getting back to normal in New York, but there's certainly a lot of help that folks still need after the hurricane. One group I'm going to recommend everybody check out if you want to help folks who were affected by the hurricane and the nor'easter. One of the groups you can check out is Occupy Sandy. So Occupy Sandy is this coordinated relief effort to distribute resources and volunteers to help neighborhoods and people who are hit by Hurricane Sandy. And it's just a fascinating shift. They've been at it for weeks, and it's very interesting. I actually went to one of their locations and volunteered this weekend, and it was really, really cool. It had a great vibe. It used technology in very innovative, interesting ways. Still a lot of paper, but sometimes paper is what gets the job done. But it's this coordinated relief effort to distribute resources and volunteers to help neighborhoods and people who are hit by Hurricane Sandy. It's a coalition of people and organizations who are dedicated to implementing aid and establishing hubs for neighborhood resource distribution. And it's people who were involved in Occupy Wall Street or 350.org or recovers.org, interoccupy.net, and all these individual volunteers. So this past weekend, I was one of those volunteer. But they're looking for more help, and the vibe is really great. They're really neat. If you want to find out more about it, go to interoccupy.net, interoccupy.net/Occupy Sandy, or just Google Occupy Sandy, and what you find is the volunteer locations who are accepting donations. You can figure out who needs what and where. I went out to the St. Jacobi Church location. They're a big distribution center and a great place to go if you're a new volunteer and you need to figure out what's going on. They're open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. But check out all of this information. You can figure out where to go, who to help, how to help them, and it's an amazing, empowering experience. Some of the tech they're using includes Google Docs, Google Voice, pieces of paper, shovels, trucks, generators, and so much human goodwill and volunteerism. It's amazing. I highly recommend checking out Occupy Sandy for volunteer activities, for donations of stuff, and it's really great. So they are at Occupy Sandy on Twitter, and if you want to, get on their list of texts and tweets and whatnot, you can sign up for it, and it's fascinating. I highly recommend getting involved. It is interesting the variety of things there are to do. They have some administrative work, but mostly lifting, carrying, moving, cleaning, helping, and feeling wonderful. Also helping to food prep, helping to do canvassing. Right now, they need more blankets. They need AAA batteries, Ziploc bags, cleaning supplies, baby food, toddler food, formula, Scotch tape, toiletries, deodorants, can openers. It's really kind of amazing just how good this group is at getting things to people who need things. So I highly recommend looking into them. They're all over the interwebs, and they're using technology in absolutely great, empowering ways. So back on to kind of the boring tech stuff that is going on in the world. Apple is exploring ways to replace Intel processors in their Mac PCs. So this is kind of an interesting shift. Apple began using Intel chips back in 2005. Before that point, they'd been using other kind of processors, and now they're starting to